If you want power, stop needing approval. They say the most dangerous person in the room is the one who no longer needs to be liked. And they're right, because the moment you stop living for applause is the moment you become unstoppable. Most people walk through life like ghosts, trapped behind the glass of other people's opinions. They perform for invisible judges, smile when they're dying inside, shrink themselves to fit into boxes built by people who never understood them. And they call that life. But there comes a moment, a quiet rebellion, when you finally ask yourself, what would I do if I no longer needed permission? That question is the beginning of your true power. Because power doesn't come from being agreed with. It comes from being aligned. Look at history's greats. Edison didn't ask for approval when he failed 1,000 times to invent the light bulb. Carnegie didn't build empires by playing it safe in the shadow of polite society. Lincoln wasn't voted most likely to succeed in his youth. He failed, was ridiculed, and yet stood taller than any man in the room because he lived from purpose, not applause. Approval is a drug, and like all drugs, it weakens you while it soothes you. It gives you a temporary high, a hit of validation, but in exchange, it demands your authenticity, your courage, your soul. Every time you silence your truth for approval, you trade power for peace. But it's a false peace, fragile, shallow, and easily broken. Real power begins when you decide, I will no longer outsource my self-worth. Your worth is not a democracy. It's not up for debate. It is not voted on by friends, family, followers, or the algorithm. It is claimed. It is chosen. It is lived, loudly, fully, unapologetically. But here's the paradox. We were raised to believe that to belong, we must be approved of, and that if we're rejected, we've failed. That is the lie that breaks most people. You weren't born to be approved. You were born to be expressed. True power doesn't beg, it builds. It doesn't seek validation, it creates vision. And the boldness to follow that vision, no matter who doesn't understand it, is the dividing line between the average and the exceptional. So let's talk about the battlefield where this war is won or lost. Your mindset. Because the mind of a powerful person is built differently. They don't ask, will they like me? They ask, is this true to who I am? They don't wait for consensus before they move. They decide, and the world adapts. Because they know, leadership is not about being liked. It's about being real. And that scares people. Because when you stop chasing approval, you become a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable. You reflect back the lives they never built, the dreams they abandoned, the strength they buried under layers of politeness and fear. But don't let their discomfort become your cage. You are not here to make people comfortable. You are here to wake up the part of yourself that's been asleep for too long. And yes, that will threaten people. It will make some walk away. Let them. Every step toward your power will cost you approval. But every ounce of that power will give you something better, freedom. Freedom to speak without rehearsing. Freedom to walk into rooms without shrinking. Freedom to live a life designed by vision, not validation. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. It takes a kind of mental steel that few are willing to forge. Because when you stop performing, you start feeling. The silence gets louder. The loneliness creeps in. You'll feel exposed, uncertain. But that's not weakness. That's transformation. The caterpillar thinks it's dying in the cocoon. It doesn't know it's becoming something unstoppable. So when you feel lost, alone, judged, good, it means you're shedding the false layers. It means you're no longer addicted to applause. It means you're getting closer to truth. And truth is the most dangerous weapon you will ever wield. Not truth as in facts, but truth as in alignment. Truth as in, this is who I am when no one's watching. And I will not betray that person for a like, a handshake, or a fake smile. It is this kind of self-alignment that makes people unbreakable. Because when your internal compass is clear, no amount of external noise can shake you. And that clarity, that inner knowing, only comes when you cut the cord to approval. The need to be liked is the enemy of greatness. It keeps you polite when you should be powerful. It keeps you compliant when you should be creating. It makes you rehearse instead of roar. But you weren't built to rehearse. You were built to redefine. So redefine what it means to be powerful. Power is not dominance. Power is sovereignty. It is the quiet knowing that your value is not dependent on audience reaction. It is the unshakable stance that your truth does not require translation. It is the ability to stand alone, not as a victim, but as a vessel for something bigger than yourself. You don't have to be loud, but you must be clear. You don't have to be liked, but you must be true. Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for applause. They will come, or they won't. But you must keep building anyway. Because power, true power, is forged in the silence after you say something no one claps for, but you know was right. That's where leaders are born. Not in the noise of the crowd, but in the stillness of conviction. Every time you speak your truth and no one claps, the universe takes note, because you didn't do it for them. You did it for you. And that is where the root of personal power begins to grow. You must understand this. Approval is addictive because it gives the illusion of certainty. But nothing extraordinary was ever born from certainty. It is uncertainty, the leap, the unknown, the edge of discomfort, that gives birth to greatness. If you live only for what others approve of, you will never discover who you truly are. You'll become a collage of expectations, a mosaic of masks, a polite echo of a life unlived. But when you let go of that, even if only a little, your real voice starts to emerge. And that voice? That voice is dangerous, because it doesn't flinch. It doesn't rise and fall with likes or comments. It doesn't ask, what will they think? It asks, what is right for me? What is true? And that kind of voice, unshaken by crowds, unmoved by trends, is rare. That kind of voice builds empires, changes culture, shifts generations, because it is rooted in something more powerful than opinion. It is rooted in purpose. Let's talk about that purpose. Because once you stop asking others for permission to be yourself, you begin to see clearly what you were meant to build. And clarity is terrifying. It demands action. No more hiding behind, I'm figuring it out. No more rehearsing in the mirror. It's time to act, time to create, time to become what you were always afraid to admit you could be. But here's the truth. Most people will never get there. Not because they're not capable, but because they are too obedient to approval. They let others define their limits. They shrink their dreams to fit within socially acceptable boxes. They call it being realistic. But the word, realistic, has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. Be unrealistic. Be unapologetic. Be willing to dream so loud they call you arrogant. Because what they call arrogance is often just clarity with a spine. Henry Ford was laughed out of meetings when he said he'd build a car for every man. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Oprah was told she didn't have the right look for television. And yet, they didn't need your applause. They didn't need your permission. They had already approved of themselves. And that's what you need to do. You need to give yourself approval in advance. Approve of your dreams before they're understood. Approve of your journey before it makes sense. Approve of your worth before it's applauded. Because if you don't, you'll live your entire life waiting for someone to see you, to validate you, to choose you. But no one is coming to rescue you from the prison of needing approval. You have to break out yourself. And when you do, something wild happens. You stop needing to prove. You start needing to be. You don't walk into rooms to impress anymore. You walk in to express. You don't chase attention. You hold presence. There's a quiet strength in those who know who they are. Not the loud kind that screams for recognition. The kind that says, I've already made peace with who I am. You can like it or not, I'm still here. That's what people remember. Not the chameleon who blends in, but the fire that burns, no matter who's watching. Now let's talk about resilience. Because when you stop chasing approval, you will face rejection. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people. And that's the price of freedom. But hear this. Not everyone who walks away was meant to walk with you. When you shift from needing to leading, from pleasing to building, your circle gets smaller, but your impact grows deeper. And in that smaller circle, forged by truth, not approval, you find something sacred. Alignment. Alignment with your values. Alignment with your mission. Alignment with the version of you who looks in the mirror and says, this is who I've fought to become. And I'm proud. Resilience is not about surviving chaos. It's about continuing your path despite it. It's easy to stay on course when you're being praised. But when you're being ignored, dismissed, ridiculed, that's when real warriors are born. When the noise is loud and the applause is gone, can you still move forward? Can you still create, still speak, still build? Because power is not about having influence. It's about having integrity when no one is watching. It's about saying, even if the world never claps, I will still write, I will still speak, I will still rise. That's what Napoleon Hill meant when he wrote about definiteness of purpose. It's not a motivational phrase. It's a way of life. When your purpose becomes stronger than your need to be liked, you unlock something sacred, inner authority. And inner authority will carry you through storms approval cannot survive. You'll walk into rejection and still stand tall. You'll hear the whispers and still speak truth. You'll be alone and still feel whole. Because power is not about being followed. It's about being rooted. And when you are rooted in who you are, you become unshakable. You've been taught that your roots must grow from others' recognition. That without approval, you will wither. But the truth is, your roots grow deepest in silence. In solitude. In that cold, quiet space where no one is clapping, but you keep going anyway. Because deep down, something in you knows. There is a vision planted inside you that no one else can see. And it is not your job to convince them. It is your job to cultivate it. That's the trap most people fall into. They think their vision has no value until it's validated. But vision is not given to crowds. It's given to individuals. And it's given in the dark. Moses received his mission in isolation. Martin Luther King Jr. was jailed before he was praised. Mandela was exiled before he was celebrated. You must stop measuring your progress with public applause. Because what is planted in silence will bloom in power, if you protect it. And protection means this: stop showing your dreams to people who haven't earned the right to hold them. Stop asking for directions from people who've never been where you're going. Your dream was not assigned to a committee. It was given to you. And it's your job to carry it, even when your hands shake. Because they will. There will be days when doubt grips your throat and whispers, no one cares, no one sees you, you're wasting your time. And in that moment, you must look doubt in the eye and say, I don't do this for them. I do this because it's who I am. That's the shift. That's the power. That's when your life stops being a performance and becomes a calling. And when you answer that calling, when you show up not as a product of approval but as a vessel of vision, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become ungoverned by fear. You become unshaken by rejection. You become free. Now let's talk about discipline. Because power is not only about what you believe, it's about what you build. And building requires endurance. Building requires consistency. Building requires the courage to be bored, tired, and uncelebrated, and still keep going. You see, the world loves the idea of greatness. But it rarely respects the process of becoming great. There's no applause at 4 a.m. There are no trophies for rewriting the same sentence 100 times. No one sees the silent hours, the doubt, the repetition, the setbacks. But the greats? They stay the course. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on meaning. They don't need energy. They need commitment. They understand what most people forget. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. It says, I will not betray my future for a moment of comfort. It says, I trust myself enough to do the work, even when the work is lonely. And here's what they don't tell you. When you stop needing approval, your discipline becomes dangerous. Because now, you're not fueled by applause. You're fueled by vision. And vision is stronger than validation. It doesn't waver when no one's watching. It doesn't fade when others disagree. It burns, quietly, constantly, until it becomes real. But let's not pretend it's always poetic. Sometimes, it's brutal. There will be days when you want to go back. When the comfort of fitting in feels safer than the isolation of rising up. When it would be easier to water yourself down just to belong again. And in those moments, you must ask yourself, do I want to be liked? Or do I want to be free? Because you can't have both. Freedom is the reward for those who are willing to be misunderstood. And if you want to live at your highest level, you must learn to sit in that misunderstanding. To be misquoted, to be mocked, to be dismissed by people who never had the courage to do what you're doing. And yet, keep building anyway. Not in spite of the silence. Because of it. Because it is in that silence where you meet your higher self. The version of you who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink. The version of you who doesn't need the world, because they've finally come home to themselves. That version of you? That's who the world is waiting for. Not the polished, packaged, approved one, but the raw, real, relentless one. The one who knows, my power doesn't come from being chosen. My power comes from choosing myself. The greatest turning point in your life will not be the day someone finally claps for you. It will be the day you stop needing them to. Because on that day, your energy shifts. You stop orbiting around other people's gravity. And you begin generating your own. That's the kind of shift that rewrites your story. From passive to powerful. From waiting to creating. From being seen to being sovereign. And yes, sovereignty is a heavy crown. It means you stop blaming. It means you stop explaining. It means you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to start living like you were born to. But with that crown comes clarity. You begin to see that most people are trapped, not by lack of opportunity, but by fear of rejection. They play small because they were never taught how to carry the discomfort of disapproval. But you're learning that discomfort is not a signal to retreat, it's a sign you're breaking the mold. And molds were made to be shattered. Listen, the world does not need more agreeable, well-behaved, approval-addicted people. It needs more of you. Not the version you polished for them. Not the one you rehearsed to be liked. But the one who's been waiting behind your fear. Waiting behind your silence. Waiting behind your need to fit in. And now, it's time. It's time to stop filtering your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. It's time to stop editing your truth to avoid disapproval. It's time to stop shrinking your voice to match the room. Make the room match you. You weren't put here to echo. You were put here to erupt. To disrupt. To remind the world that authenticity is power. Even if it makes people nervous. Especially if it makes people nervous. Because in a world addicted to validation, the boldest act is not rebellion, it's alignment. Alignment with your truth. Alignment with your fire. Alignment with the fact that you don't need to be loved by all. You just need to be real with one. You. So wake up every day with this vow. I will no longer be held hostage by the hope of approval. I will build without applause. I will rise without permission. I will speak even if my voice shakes, because I'd rather be rejected for who I am than accepted for who I am not. That's not arrogance. That's integrity. And integrity is the soil from which every truly great life has grown. People followed Lincoln not because he was loud, but because he was anchored. People trusted Gandhi not because he demanded obedience, but because he embodied his truth. People feared and respected those who, like Da Vinci, Tesla, and Joan of Arc, seemed willing to walk alone if it meant walking towards something greater. And now it's your turn. Your turn to choose. Will you stay kneeling at the altar of approval? Or will you rise and build your own altar, one of purpose, presence, and unapologetic pursuit? Will you let the fear of disapproval dictate the size of your dreams? Or will you let the pull of your calling burn that fear to ash? Because if you want power, real, enduring, soul-born power, you must stop trying to be chosen. You must choose yourself. Not once, not in theory, but daily, in every action, in every decision, in every conversation where it would be easier to nod and disappear. But instead you speak the truth anyway. That's how revolutions begin, not with explosions, but with one person who dares to stop apologizing for their existence. You don't need more followers. You need more fire. You don't need more applause. You need more alignment. Because the truth is, the world doesn't reward the most obedient. It rewards the most authentic. The ones who lead, not because they asked to, but because they couldn't not. The ones who show up, not because they're ready, but because the world needs what they carry. And what you carry matters. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone will clap for it. Not everyone will approve of it. But that's no longer your concern. Your concern now is creation. Your concern now is contribution. Your concern now is becoming the person you were always meant to be. Even if it costs you every ounce of approval you once chased. Because on the other side of that sacrifice is freedom. And on the other side of freedom is power. You've already waited long enough. Now rise and become.